ADA website compliance is starting to become common knowledge, and this is going to help a lot of website owners work on accessibility before they are sued. On the screen with me is a post I came across last night in the small business subreddit. And this original post has 1.5 thousand upvotes and 303 comments in just a month. And this is the most activity I've seen on any type of post like this on Reddit. But there are some comments that lead people astray, and there's actually some bad information in the original post. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the post and several of the comments and then add my commentary. Let's start off with this original post. It's by a lawyer, and they have a client who is a small business who operates an e-commerce website, and that client was sued. And the lawyer writes, there are law firms that file these lawsuits to shake down small businesses for thousands of dollars over something that can be fixed cheaply and easily. Absolutely not. This is not fixed cheaply and easily. And then he writes, you can go on Fiverr or a similar website and have your site brought into compliance for a couple $100. Absolutely not. This post is indicative of what happens to a lot of people. They research for a few minutes and they've decided that they have this all figured out, and then they relay that information, wrong as it may be, to others, and then others are under a false impression. So you can't fix this cheaply and easily. You can't just go onto Fiverr and have this taken care of for you. So that will lead website owners astray, and that's the original post. So I definitely wanted to address this. The first comment is from someone who writes, as a professional software developer, you'd be surprised how little product owners and management care about this. Absolutely true. That has been my experience as well. And then someone writes, I just ran the Chrome audit you recommended. So this is for Google Lighthouse, and got 100 on accessibility. Do you still recommend me getting someone to make sure it's ADA compliant? So the problem here is many people think that scans, and it doesn't matter which scan, are conclusive of accessibility. And so they view scans as ADA compliance checkers, and they are very fixated on their score. And if they get 100, they think that they're in good shape. And so this person's asking, am I in good shape? And the answer is, you might be. I mean, that's a really good initial start, but you just have to know that scans are limited in the number of accessibility issues that they can flag. You can also, in effect, pass on a scan even where you have an accessibility issue. So even with scans, they require a manual review for all of the results. But the scans are very helpful in providing instant results and giving you a good feel and overall sense of your accessibility, but they are not conclusive by any means. Scans will only flag a limited subset of accessibility issues that you need to check for. So you always have to manually review everything. Just know scans are very helpful tools, but they are very limited tools. Um, so continuing down, someone said my wife's business got hit a few years back. The plaintiff's representation had filed hundreds of these. It's basically a shakedown, but they fought it to the point where they're about to go to trial, and then the plaintiff's attorneys backed off and dropped their suit. Basically, they were afraid of losing the case and setting a precedent that would kill their business model. I can definitely see this because the plaintiffs' law firms have a business model, and it works best when people are not defending against the lawsuit. It works best when people just settle. And if there have been cases that have set precedents that have set these plaintiffs' law firms back, and I'm sure plaintiffs' law firms would love to not contest some of these that have actually gone the distance. And so this is true, and increasingly so, we are seeing success in defending against these cases because courts are becoming more and more familiar with them. They are becoming aware of the game. So we are seeing more and more success in defending these cases. So it is worth considering, but also you should know that the defense attorneys, it's also in their best, it's in their business model to sue rather than defend. And there is definitely validity to the fact that if you defend these cases, it will cost more, and it can be ultimately more expensive, and usually is, than defending against the case. But you can also have success in defending these cases. So it's really up to you if you want to invest the time, money, and energy in defending. it's certainly a route you can go, and you can have success. And we have seen increasing success in 2023 and 2024. It also depends on the court. So you want to make sure that you get the best advice from your defense attorney. You really need to work with someone who is experienced in this space so that they understand the different elements and dynamics in play. But you also want to make sure that they're giving you all of the information available. Let's continue on down. I've been curious who owns the compliance checker websites, if they're owned by law firms bringing the lawsuits. I suppose that's a possibility, but I don't see it. I think these scans are mostly provided by accessibility companies, but that's certainly a possibility. I've never looked into the ownership of several of the scans, but I think with Wave, we know Wave is operated and owned by WebAIM. WebAIM is a real accessibility organization. Axe is owned by DQ. DQ is a real digital accessibility company. So at the very least, with those two, we know that they are independently operated by non-plaintiffs law firms. Thank you. Someone writes, "Thank you for this post. I will reach out to my web developer." That is an excellent first step. You need someone with web development experience and knowledge to make the necessary fixes. But they need to learn about accessibility so that they can make the appropriate fixes. A lot of web developers and web designers, etc., they are not familiar with accessibility. So you need to have that accessibility knowledge, but the web development background is necessary to make some of the more technical fixes. So that's good. My wife's company got sued twice over it. It is no joke. And so this goes to the point, this is real. A lot of people don't think it can happen to them until it does. So just know that this happens over and over again. I have this channel. You might think, well, okay, this isn't for me. This is for someone else. You're just talking about it as, more of like, this is in theory, it might happen. No, it really does happen on a regular basis. Someone else said, I had this happen, and we kindly pointed out to the law firm bringing the suit that their website had more instances of non-compliance than our own. We fixed it and refused the lawsuit, but that made me laugh. Not much comment to add there, but yes, the law firms that are actually the plaintiffs' law firms that are bringing these cases, a lot of times they have accessibility issues on their own website. Someone commented on the Fiverr comment. He quoted, "You can go on Fiverr or a similar website and have your site brought into compliance." And they write, "No, unfortunately you can't, because unfortunately those guidelines are not actually rules or definitions for accessibility, and there is absolutely no way possible to be compliant since there is absolutely no standard for compliance." Okay, so he goes off into another direction where he's taking the approach that because the Americans with Disabilities Act does not contemplate modern digital technology such as websites and mobile apps, and because the DOJ has yet to issue formal regulation, that we don't know how to be compliant. But what he's going right past is the fact that we do know best practices for making your website ADA compliant, and know the web content accessibility guidelines are not the law, but they are a good reference, and they have been in reference numerous times in litigation. And we know that WCAG conformance is a best practice. Now, there are several accessibility issues. There are basically 15 accessibility issues that plaintiffs' law firms claim in litigation over and over again. So that's where you want to start. And that's what my ADA compliance course it covers, is how to find and fix and prioritize those 15 issues. But those issues are basically drawn from the web content accessibility guidelines. Plaintiffs' law firms, they usually don't understand the web content accessibility guidelines only as far as how they can create claims, how they can make accessibility claims against a website, but they don't really understand them. They aren't truly familiar with them. But there is a basis here. We do have an idea of what compliance looks like, and the best practices for compliance are WCAG 2.1 AA conformance or 2.2, and publishing a conspicuous accessibility statement. So this idea that we don't know what to do and everything's too confusing and it's too ambiguous. No, there isn't a formal legal precedent, but we do know what path to go down to avoid these types of lawsuits. So he goes off onto a tangent, but that tangent, in a way, is wrong. He's right in the literal sense, but practically, we know that there are certain accessibility issues we need to prioritize, and that if we can make our websites fully WCAG conformant, it is very unlikely that you would be sued, and if you were, you would have a very easy defense. Continuing down, someone provides links to WebAIM and then some WordPress plugins. Just know with the WordPress plugins, they're not going to make your website ADA compliant. They may shore up some accessibility issues. I like Joe Dolson's WP Accessibility. It is a good plugin for WordPress, but it doesn't resolve for everything. And he disclaims that on the actual information for the plugin. But just know that the plugins aren't going to be conclusive. And yes, I do like Wave by WebAIM, but again, scans are limited. All scans. It doesn't matter what scan they are. It doesn't matter whether they are premium. It doesn't matter whether they are free. They are limited. Someone says, thank you for bringing this topic up. As a web developer of 20 years, I found two things that business owners like to ignore, and that is website accessibility or website security and accessibility. I can't speak to accessibility, but I can definitely say accessibility is accurate. Just putting this out there, being ADA compliant won't stop lawsuits, but if one is filed and you are showing best practices, that will look good for you. Also, the complaint guidelines are all over the place. Each online checker has different suggestions. At my employment, we follow the AA standard. Okay, so he's all over the place here with this comment, and it's actually difficult to untangle what he's saying. So being ADA compliant won't stop lawsuits. I haven't seen so some lawsuits, some of the complaints filed are boilerplate claims, and that they claim the same thing over and over again. But what has been the case is when I look through the websites that do have a complaint filed against them, where they do receive a demand letter, ultimately there are some accessibility issues that exist. The complaint may not even have the accessibility issues right, but there is usually something for the plaintiff's law firms to go on. Now, earlier on, plaintiffs' law firms were lazier. They have upped their game. Some have even recruited accessibility experts to work through websites and find accessibility issues. So when he says being ADA compliant won't stop lawsuits, I think what he's getting at is not having accessibility issues. If you don't have any accessibility issues, I don't think you will be sued. It's possible, but it's highly unlikely. Plaintiffs' law firms are finding websites with accessibility issues. But if one is filed and you are showing best practices, that will look good for you. Also, the complaint guidelines are all over the place. No, they're not. Scans. Each online checker has different suggestions. So yes, scans can have some different rule sets, but they're going to have the same core set of accessibility issues that they check for. But just know that scans are limited to what can be caught through automation. Some go a little bit further than others, but they're mostly the same. They have the same effect. It's great practice to run through different scans and see what accessibilities show up, because plaintiffs' law firms could potentially use the different accessibility scans, but they don't really have different suggestions. They may have more, but it's not so much different. They may be presented in different ways. For example, Axe is more developer friendly, and then Wave is more beginner friendly. So there may be different presentations, but no. At my employment, we follow the AA standard. Everyone follows AA conformance level. Let's see. Someone else says that my old industry was hit with a bunch of lawsuits a few years back. Someone asked, so if a website is Shopify, it doesn't matter, and we should sift through resources to make it ADA compliant or hire someone? Yes, I would look through resources, and I'll link to a previous video I did yesterday where I talk about where to start. And where to start is gathering information so that you're informed and you're not just working through loose recommendations and various comments that may or may not be helpful. Someone else wrote, got hit with ADA suit, $10,000 settlement, get business insurance. Apparently, from my research, the insurance to have is EPLI insurance, which is Employment Practices Liability Insurance. Um, I haven't looked too much into insurance other than to price it out, and it's really I think if I was thinking about insurance, where I would lean towards is putting that money into an audit and remediation, and then just making sure my website is accessible and staying on top of it. But insurance is certainly a possibility, but it's just very, very expensive. So it probably isn't going to be worth it. I would rather invest in training on accessibility, making sure my team doesn't introduce accessibility issues, and then integrating accessibility as a part of my processes. That's where I would put my money. Of course, you can get insurance, but it's just going to be, this doesn't have to be an ongoing issue, especially if you make sure your website is fully accessible. You work towards WCAG conformance, you take care of the primary issues that plaintiffs' lawyers look for, you're going to be in really, really good shape. What you want to do is you want to make your website unattractive to plaintiffs' lawyers by taking care of the accessibility issues that they focus in on most, and then working towards WCAG conformance. So there's very much a strategic component to this, a strategic aspect to this, where we take care of certain accessibility issues first, but we do want to work towards WCAG conformance. So I've read through a lot of comments. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to link to this Reddit this Reddit thread in the description, and then I will add some more information in the description. If you need help with accessibility, I offer services at accessible.org, and then also if you need training. So if you have a web developer and you want to help in training them on what accessibility issues to prioritize, how exactly to find and fix those issues, I also have my ADA compliance course. And then I have a WCAG course, which is a course over the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. This is going to help you learn those all of the success criteria, all of the accessibility issues that are pertinent to web accessibility. I'm going to include a link to that course as well. So there will be more information in the description. But for now, it's a really good sign that more and more people are talking about this and bringing attention to the litigation, but also to the need to make your website accessible. So I will include links in the description.